too much. Wish that I could somehow keep my mouth shut.
Are we queued up, Frank?
Yes, yeah, we're ready. If you want to go ahead and count down from 10 and begin.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to call to order this meeting of the Arlington ISD Board of Trustees on August the 20th, 2020 at 5:02 p.m. Due to health and safety concerns related to the COVID-19 coronavirus, this meeting will be conducted by video conference or telephone call. At least a quorum of the board will be participating by video conference or telephone in accordance with the provisions of Section 551.125 or 551.127 of the Texas Government Code that have been suspended by order of the governor. Members of the public may access this meeting via AISD website at www.aisd.net. The Board of Trustees on August the 20th, 2020, beginning at 5:03 p.m., will convene in closed session pursuant to sections 551.071 through 551.084 of the Texas Government Code in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act for the topics set forth on our agenda. We will reconvene an open meeting at approximately 6:15 p.m. At this time, I will reconvene into open session this meeting of the Arlington Independent School District Board of Trustees for August the 20th, 20, beginning at 6:36 p.m. We will start our meeting with the open ceremony. Please join Ms. Walton in leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Ms. Walton. Please, anyone who's not speaking, if you could please make sure that you are muted so that we have no disruptions. And now, if you would all please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you very much. Next, we will consider administrative appointments. Dr. Cavazos.
Thank you, President Mays, and I'd like to recommend that the board ratify the appointment of the individuals discussed in closed session for assistant principal at Bailey Junior High, assistant principal for Patrick Elementary, assistant principal for Reminzi Elementary, and assistant principal for Wood Elementary.
Move to
Move for approval.
Okay. So I had a motion by Mr. Hawk. I believe I had a second.
Second.
I have a second by Ms. Walton.
Thank you.
Any discussion? Seeing none, we will vote. Once again, since this meeting is being held virtually, our vote will be a roll call vote. Please state your name and your vote, either yes if you are in favor of the motion or no if you are not in favor of the motion. Ms. Walton,
Polly Walton, I vote yes.
Mrs. Fowler,
Melody Fowler, I vote yes.
Mr. Hogg,
Bowie Hogg, I vote yes.
Mr. Wilbanks,
David Wilbanks, I vote yes.
Mr. Chapa,
Justin Chapa, I vote yes.
Dr. Reich,
Aaron Reich, I vote yes.
Keisha Mays, I vote yes. Motion passes in the affirmative. Dr. Cavazos,
Thank you, President Mays. And at this time, I'd like to introduce the new assistant principal for Bailey Junior High, Ty Anavi Coronado. Ty attended the University of Texas, Austin for Bachelor of Science in Chemistry. South Dakota State University for Master of Science in Chemistry. Most recently was a chemistry IB teacher at Bowie High School. Also has taught pre-AP biology in Dallas ISD, physics and pre-AP chemistry in Irving ISD, and has been a pre-AP chemistry teacher in Austin ISD as well. Next, the assistant principal for Patrick Elementary is Keisha Waters. Keisha attended University in Longview for Bachelor's of Business Administration, University of Texas Arlington for Master of Ed in Curriculum and Instruction. Most recently gifted and talented teacher at Jones Academy. Has taught 4th grade math and science at Jones, 3rd grade math and science at Jones, 3rd grade teacher and 5th grade boot camp teacher at Rockmore, and 2nd grade teacher at Rockmore, and has also been a human resource specialist in her past as well. Next, the assistant principal for Reminzi Elementary is Rochelle Heslip. Rochelle attended St. Leo University, Bachelor of Arts in Business Administration and Management, St. Leo University for Master of Science in Criminal Justice. Most recently, campus testing facilitator at Reminzi Elementary. Has taught 2nd grade reading and language arts in College Station. Has been a special ed K through 4th grade teacher, a 3rd grade teacher, and a 4th grade teacher as well. Next, the assistant principal for Wood Elementary is Ricky Andrews. Ricky attended Arkansas State University for Bachelor of Science in Elementary Education, Arkansas State University for Master of Ed in Reading Education. Most recently, a 2nd and 3rd grade teacher at Little Elementary. Has been an administrative instructional coach, a Title I reading and math specialist, and a literacy supervisor, and a 1st grade teacher as part of her experience as well. And that concludes the appointments for tonight. At some point, we'll have a reception with all these appointments so that you can meet them. Thank you.
we will need a very large area for this reception, Dr. Cavazos. We are adding and adding to the list. Congratulations to those appointments. So now we come to our open forum for agenda items. As stated on the posted agenda, members of the public who desire to address the board regarding an item on this agenda are required to register by sending an email to the Superintendent of School Secretary, Lisa Benjamin, no later than 3 p.m. the day of the board meeting. Mrs. Benjamin, do we have any requesters registered to address the board regarding agenda items this evening?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Wendell Belfield is registered to speak.
Okay. See Mr. Belfield connecting. Very good. So welcome, Mr. Belfield. This is a routine part of the school board's agenda for regularly scheduled meetings. This segment of the meeting provides citizens with an opportunity to share their views with the trustees on items that are on the agenda tonight. It is not intended to be a discussion or a debate, and trustees will not reply to the speakers. Derogatory comments aimed at an individual will not be tolerated. Personnel matters are not appropriate for open forum. You will have 5 minutes to speak. Mrs. Benjamin will notify you when your time is up, and please end your presentation at that time. So welcome, Mr. Bielefeld.
Thank you. So just wanted to give an update again on where we stand with the Tarrant County guidelines. So these are the 6 guidelines that were defined by the Tarrant County Public Health Authorities. And what we show, I guess, with the 4 weeks of data, they want us to meet these 6 criteria before they would recommend a return to in-person schooling. The first one is 4 weeks of data showing stable or declining case counts, and we are meeting that. If you go to their website, you will see a little bit of a red bar there. That is not recorded case counts. That's a probable case counts that was requested by the state Department of Health for them to add in there. But you need to look at the blue bars, I guess. And if you look at those, we are stable and declining on there. So that one we are meeting. The 7-day moving average for COVID-like illnesses trending lower for 2 weeks. We're meeting that one as well. The percent of available hospital beds that are in Tarrant County that have COVID cases, they want us to be at 10% or less, and we are currently at 9% there. They want the ISDs to have presented plans for reopening, including the elements outlined in their guide. And I heard last week that we have done that, so that one is satisfied. And then they have a 7-day average of positivity rate that they want to be 10% or less. They mentioned ideally less than 5%, and of course lower is always better and more ideal. But none of this is going to be ideal. So that threshold is 10%, with lower always being better. We're currently at 9% positivity rate, and the good news is we're trending downward on that. So the only one we're not meeting yet is the case count per week. And you probably heard last week about the backlog of cases that they found. Unfortunately, they plopped all those cases into one day, August 16th, and I'm trying to contact them and see if they're going to back. Most of those cases occurred in July, and so I want to make sure that they're not just right now. They have 1,436 cases all on August 16th. And so that is by far and away the record for the county all year. So of course that's not really appropriate. They should be kind of back added to where those cases actually occurred. But in any case, we're not meeting that metric yet, but it is trending downward, so that's good. So what I was hoping is if we were meeting all those Tarrant County guidelines at some point, is there, just wanted to find out if there's any other thing we would be looking at that would prevent us from executing the plan to restart the school. Quickly looking at what other districts in the area are doing. So there's over 120 independent districts in the area, and as of today, over half those districts have students in the classroom in some form. 87% of the remaining districts have declared in-person start dates of September 10th or earlier. This includes big school districts with big schools. Everybody probably knows about Arlington ISD. They have the largest school in the state, and they're resuming in-person on September 2nd. So after you get rid of all those, there's only 8 school districts left that show in-person start dates later than September 10th. And then out of those 8, there's only 3 school districts out of the 120 plus school districts we were talking about that still don't know when that in-person schooling will begin. And unfortunately, Arlington's one of those 3. There are other area schools that have been in person for 3 weeks now, and I'm hoping we can be able to observe their outcomes and get valuable insights for how they're performing. There's also different countries that have been doing schooling for months. So I hope we're being able to look at those different cases where they're opening up, see what's successful, what's not, both locally and around the world. And there's examples even like Israel that opened back up in May. They had brought their cases to near zero. When they opened up, they really didn't do a good job about opening up the schools, and their cases went way back up. So just want to say that to say even if we have a very good starting point in the community, it can still go back up very quickly. And of course, the plans you're talking about are very important to sustaining, keeping the numbers down. Another thing, if you'd heard about the 10 superintendents in the Houston area, they wrote a letter. They had I guess we're in disagreement with the public health officials, and they said, quote, "We must balance the important aspects of student and staff health and well-being along with fundamental educational needs of the children using guidance from the Center of Disease Control and Prevention and the Texas Education Agency. Our school districts have worked diligently for many months to plan a reasonable return to school." And then finally, the waiver. So I read in the waiver, it says, I quote, the school system must submit a board-approved waiver request to TEA to extend that transition window up to 4 additional weeks. The board must take action to authorize this waiver by specific vote and cannot otherwise delegate the waiver application to the superintendent. So again, I'm hoping after later on in the meeting, you can let me know when that vote is supposed to occur. I guess I'm reading into that the clear wording that says the board must take action. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Belfield. Next on our agenda is our action items. Dr. Cavazos.
Thank you, President Mays. And the first action item is to consider a resolution to recall a member of the Tarrant County Appraisal District Board of Directors for your consideration.
Okay. Do I have any comments, questions, a motion to come forward?
President Mays, I have a motion if there are no questions or comments.
Okay. I don't see any hands for comments or questions. So Mr. Chapa, please go forward with your motion.
Thank you, President Mays. At this time, I move that the board adopt the following resolution as written. This is entitled a resolution to recall a member of the Board of Directors of the Tarrant Appraisal District. We, the governing body of the Arlington Independent School District, as outlined in Texas Tax Code Section 6.033A, pass this resolution for the recall of Mike O'Donnell, President of the Board of Directors of the Tarrant Appraisal District. Arlington Independent School District cast 450 votes for Mr. O'Donnell the last time he was appointed to the Board of Directors. Now we, the governing body of the Arlington Independent School District, as authorized by Texas Tax Code Section 6.033B, hereby resolve and order that all the AISD votes are cast for the recall of Mr. Mike O'Donnell this 20th day of August, 2020.
Thank you, Mr. Chapa. Ms. Walton?
I will second that motion.
Okay. So I've got a motion by Mr. Chapa, a second by Ms. Walton. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we will vote. Ms. Walton?
Polly Walton, I vote yes.
Mrs. Fowler?
Melody Fowler, I vote yes.
Mr. Hogg?
Bowie Hogg, I vote yes.
Mr. Wilbanks?
David Wilbanks, I vote yes.
Mr. Chapa?
Justin Chapa, I vote yes.
Dr. Reich?
Aaron Reich, I vote yes.
Keisha Mays, I vote yes. Motion to recall a member of the Tarrant Appraisal District Board of Directors passed unanimously in the affirmative. Okay, our next action item, Dr. Cavazos.
Thank you, President Mays. And the next action item is the consideration of settlement offers for Peach Elementary School, McNutt Elementary School, and Multipurpose Activity Center construction contracts.
Okay, do we have any comments, questions, motion?
Madam President, I'd like to make the motion.
Okay, Mrs. Fowler, go right ahead.
I move that we accept this motion as written. I move to approve the proposed mediated settlement agreement with Balfour Beatty for the construction contracts involving Sandy McNutt Elementary School, PH1 BP6, New Elementary School North, Project 7, PH1 BP9, Multipurpose Activity Centers, Arlington High School, Bowie High School, Lamar High School, Martin High School, Sam Houston High School, and Seguin High School.
Okay, I have a motion by Mrs. Fowler. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Next time, David, sorry. We've got a second by Mr. Chapa. There any additional questions? No discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. Ms. Walton?
Polly Walton, I vote yes.
Mrs. Fowler?
Melody Fowler, I vote yes.
Mr. Hogg?
Bowie Hogg, I vote yes.
Mr. Wilbanks?
David Wilbanks, I vote yes.
Mr. Chapa?
Justin Chapa, I vote yes.
Dr. Reich?
Aaron Reich, I vote yes.
Keisha Mays? I vote yes. Motion to consider the settlement offers for Peach Elementary School, McNutt Elementary School, and Multipurpose Activity Centers construction contracts passes in the affirmative. That was a mouthful. Okay, next on our agenda is discussion action items. We will start with reopening schools for the 2021 plan update. Dr. Cavazos.
Thank you, President Mays. And as we have been bringing every board meeting an update on our reopening plans and how we are doing in terms of preparing for that, but also how we're doing with online instruction. Today, we bring an update related to those topics, also some next steps that we would discuss tonight with the reopening plans. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Tracy Brown to take us through the presentation. Dr. Brown.
Good evening, President Mays, Board of Trustees, and Dr. Cavazos. Thank you for the opportunity to provide an update on our return to school plan. So today we'll spend some time talking about Operation Registration, give you an update to our current numbers. We'll update you on our in-person learning program with our specialized programs for special education, provide a technology update to the board, as well as provide data on the recent Tarrant County Public Health Guidance. Provide an update for you on that as well. So we'll start with our guiding principles. As I mentioned every week, these are the 5 guiding principles that have guided all of our work that we've engaged in planning back to school. Of course, flexibility and grace, the cornerstone of our work here in Arlington, getting input from our stakeholders, making sure that we're prioritizing the health and safety and well-being of our students and our staff members, and also making sure that we are providing educational equity and excellence, access to resources, and to rigorous learning here in our system. So first day of school is behind us. We started, of course, on Monday, and we had a great first day of school. It, of course, was a little bit unconventional because most of our students, as you know, started virtually, but many of us at the senior level were able to visit campuses. You see Dr. Cavazos here on screen, but visit on campus and also peek into some virtual instruction. And we saw lots of excited students and teachers and parents too, as we've engaged in our learning to kick off the 2020-21 school year. So just a few snapshots of teachers' classrooms. We have Hale Elementary, Ashworth Elementary, and 7th grade science, our Bitmoji classroom over at Nichols Junior High School. So we've had an opportunity to monitor student engagement in the virtual learning process. We know that we can have the best laid out plans, but if our students aren't accessing their curriculum and learning, it's going to be a challenge. And so, so far, as of yesterday afternoon, we had over 11,500 students in our pre-K2 programs who've logged into Seesaw as their learning platform to be able to engage in instruction, both synchronous and asynchronous with their teachers. And our platform for grades 3 through 12 is Canvas, of course. We've had over 43,000 students who've engaged. So we are very pleased with the first few days of schools that we have students who are logging in, engaging in assignments, and moving through the modules that their teachers have planned for them. Meal distribution. So just to recap, our food services team has done an amazing job over the course of several months. As you're aware, in mid-March, we started distributing meals to our students and our community. We served over 1.4 million meals between March and the end of May. Then we served 683,000 over that number up until last Friday, August 14th. And then on Monday, we start our new serving process, our cadence. So as you recall, we do serve meals on Mondays and Thursdays, so twice a week. And on the first day of school, we served 15,000 meals. And that is about 2,500 students on Monday who picked up 3 breakfast meals and 3 lunch meals. And we have new data today, but that's not included in our presentation. We'll be sure to include that in our next update. So now we'll talk about Operation Registration. As you know, we've made a very concerted effort to reach out to parents and students who've not quite registered in our system yet. So just to provide an update on our numbers, we are at about 57,091 students who've enrolled so far. You can see our projection is a little over 59,000. So we're sitting at close to 97% of our students enrolled. As far as who is asking for virtual versus in person, that's about 60-40. So it's pretty stable from even last week, not seeing a huge shift in those numbers. Right now for our specialized programs, as I mentioned, we have 4 specialized programs across our system right now. One is our ABLE, which is our academic and behavioral learning environment students. We have our alternate curriculum students, our early childhood for special education students, as well as our regional school day program for the deaf at Miller. So out of those 4 programs, we have about 300 students on average who are showing up every day to school. So we are also going to offer a special transfer window. It's a very short amount of time, but between September 8th and 17th, students will be able to request a transfer, or parents will be able to request a transfer to any of our AISD campuses and academies. We are still continuing to process no-shows, so we don't have a clear idea of exactly how many numbers we have in each campus, but we're going to continue to process those in advance of our open transfer window. So I mentioned the concerted effort, our Operation Registration concerted effort. The campuses have done an amazing job. They have an Operation Registration Task Force that are working strategically to make sure we're making contact with parents and students who we've not quite seen yet in the first few days of instruction. So we're going to be engaging in home visits starting on Monday of next week. And so we provided protocols for our team members to be able to engage in to make sure, first of all, they're being safe. Secondly, they have all the materials they need to be able to be able to share with parents, and just a real structured way of making contact. So they're preparing for the visits, making sure they're practicing safety as they're engaging in those visits, making sure they're one person at a time is in the car, so we don't have a lot of contact with other individuals, and just making sure those parents know that we've missed you, we've missed your student, we realize that you've not enrolled yet, we want to make sure that we're providing you whatever resources and support that you need so we can get you registered in school. So we've outlined what should happen when you get to the house, what should happen during the visit, when the visit's over, and after the visit. So if we knock on a door on Monday and a parent says, yes, I know we've not registered yet, we don't have access to technology, if they're not able to make an appointment at the campus to register their child in person, we'll do it right there on the spot registration. So our staff member will just go sit in the car, have the parent reach out by phone to the staff member, and help that staff member can help them get registered right there on the spot. Our technology team has made sure we have access to an app called Jabber, which allows us to make contact on our personal phones, but the school number shows up. So we're able to still take care of school business, even sometimes on our personal phones. After the home visit has occurred, we want to make sure that we've summarized the visit, what happened, what are next steps, is there anything the parent needs from the district or from the campus that we might be able to get them to help expedite their registration process. And the last part is even having a script for our team members. So when they go to the school, we have this in English and Spanish. When they go to the homes, they're able to know exactly what the talking point should be as they engage those parents in an effort to get the students registered for school. If we knock on a door and there's nobody there, we have registration in the bag. So we've basically put together all of the resources that a parent might need to register, from residency affidavit forms to the charging of meals, immunization information they may need for their student. And they'll be able to have all of that information in English and Spanish. Again, just trying to make sure we provide every resource possible to help our parents enroll their students for the school year. We're also leaving door hangers. We have AISD door hangers, campuses as well, and also brochures that outlines the campus contact information, the principal's name, the website, any information that parent might need from that school. We're really letting them know step by step, this is what you can do to enroll. And of course, we are here to assist you if you need that. As far as technology and instructional support, to share a couple of items with you. One is new this week, and that is our Quick Start Guide to District Technology Platforms. We realize with some of our parents and students, they may be overwhelmed by the information, how to log on, how to change my username, how do I log on to iStation, what other resources are there? So we want to provide a one-pager front and back for parents, English, Spanish, we're working on Vietnamese right now. So they would have a one-pager that would be able to help them walk through the Canvas platform, how they ask for help for student technology, and how to access any other instructional resources they may need to make sure their students are successful during the virtual learning environment. And as far as requests for technology, this is a rolling number. I think Eric Upchurch would tell you the same thing. It changes probably every couple of minutes. But so far, we've had over 19,000 requests for either a Chromebook or an iPad. In general, most of those requests have been fulfilled. We do have some outstanding ones we want to make sure we take care of. And so our team is working diligently to make repairs on devices. And also we're getting a new shipment in, hopefully the week of the 24th, next week. So we'll be able to meet the demands for that fluid number of students who are requesting devices. As it relates to connectivity or hotspots, we have almost 900 requests so far, and we are able to meet the demands for that connectivity. We know the technology is one part, but if they aren't able to connect to Wi-Fi, that's another challenge. We want to make sure we alleviate that challenge and help them be able to connect to the learning as quickly as possible. And the last part of our conversation today will be Tarrant County Public Health guidance for school reopening, which we shared with you last week. And so just to reiterate the metrics for safer in-person instruction that's been outlined by Tarrant County Public Health, and then also provide an update as to where we are right now in Tarrant County. So as mentioned last week, that 7-day moving average, we want the positivity rate to be less than 10%, ideally less than 5%. And so I'll share with you our updated numbers here in just a moment. We want the cases to be less than 2,000 cases per week. Another metric is at least 4 weeks of data showing a decline in case counts in Tarrant County. The 7-day moving average of those COVID-like illnesses, want that percent to be trending lower for at least the last 2 weeks. And then the percent of hospital beds to be below 10% for COVID patients. And the other part of this is making sure that we have a solid plan that we have submitted to the county for approval. And we shared with you that last week that as well. So here's our numbers so far. This is the numbers that we pulled yesterday. So our 7-day moving average positivity rate is at about 10%, which remains stable from August 9th, and that's of August 15th. In terms of cases per week, you might recall that second square there, it was significantly lower than you see right now. I think I reported maybe close to 1,300 cases. And of course, we did share that was incomplete data. And by August 9th, we were at 3,820 with about 80 probable cases. As of August 13th, which is a week ago, we had 693 cases with 23 probable cases. And of course, that data is incomplete, and we'll continue to monitor that data to provide an updated data for our next update. The moving average for COVID-like illnesses is at 2.4 as of August 16th. So we do see a declination from 3.2 to 2.4 August 16th. And then COVID hospitalizations, we are remaining steady. August 16th, we had 11% of occupied beds being our COVID patients. So in discussing next steps, where do we go from here? We're going to continue, of course, our collaboration with Tarrant County Public Health. We're going to continue to monitor and track data closely with that team to make sure we're keeping on top of that. And we're going to continue our preparation for face-to-face instruction. We've been working on that for a few months now. We'll continue as we get closer to making a different decision. And then we will continue the development of scheduling options for all of our students, pre-K through 12th grade. And that concludes the update today. I'm happy to take any questions.
And Dr. Brown, before you take questions, just a little calibration there at the last slide, and that is that as we look at those targets set by Tarrant County and their guidance, there are some positive indicators. They're not at a point that they've sustained enough, but they are positive. Just to calibrate, because there's a lot of discussion around this sometimes and information. As those targets are met and when those targets are met, it's important to also know that that's when reopening can be considered with the guidelines that have been put forth. So with strict protocols, once targets are met. So that's, I think, a key point, that meeting those targets means, okay, you can now implement your strict protocols, wearing a mask, social distance, making sure you have entry, exit, temperature checks, screeners, all those things in that guide, and the things that we've already presented to the health authorities, the things that we've presented to this board, then begin to be implemented. Just for clarity, the biggest point there on those guidelines is the ability to maintain the numbers in our classrooms in particular, the entire building, but let's just talk classroom. So the ability to maintain 6 feet of distance and organize a classroom with few numbers and the teacher is critical. And so as we hit these targets, that's what the guidance suggests, and that's what we support, that those numbers are very manageable in the building. And so to that end, Dr. Brown and staff and task force members have been working on a potential schedule that could accommodate the numbers, the managed numbers, when we hit these targets and when we can consider face-to-face instruction. So we know that just conceptually, if you manage numbers in classrooms to meet the recommendations and the requirements by Tarrant County, then that would mean that fewer students can come to school every day. And so that's where the surfacing of the concept of a hybrid schedule. And there's a lot of different interpretations. So just to be clear, a hybrid schedule conceptually is one where we manage our numbers in our buildings, ensure the protocols are implemented with fidelity, which is really important for our teachers, our staff, our community, our students. And to do that, a hybrid schedule would allow for students to come to school at certain points in the week, every week. So it may be a Monday and a Wednesday schedule for some, a Tuesday and a Thursday for others, a Friday and a Monday for others. And so those things staff is working on diligently, because we do want to have face-to-face instruction. And I've said that over and over. That's really not the question. The question is, when is it safe and how do we implement it when we hit those targets? So I want to thank the staff for their work, and Tracy for your leadership there. Also Tarrant County, because they're providing strong guidance in this as well, and Arlington Health Authority as well. But that just kind of sets some of the next steps. The next steps with the board in terms of this process is September 3rd. We have a board meeting, September 3rd. That's our next board meeting. We will be bringing, obviously, updated numbers and where we stand and what's our path forward, with the hope that the numbers will continue to improve. And so what does that mean now for our path forward? That's not done in isolation. That's done with our health authority and our staff, et cetera, so that there could be board consideration for really the next steps. And so even if we continue in a hybrid, or we start a hybrid schedule in September, that still requires this waiver to be submitted so that that's allowable with the state. Frankly, if the numbers don't improve and we don't hit those targets in a sustained way, then that's the opportunity for that waiver to continue basically how we're doing instruction today. So a lot still has to fall into place with the numbers. They're trending, a small trend, I should say, maybe not even use the word trend, but they're showing indications of some real progress, and that's very hopeful, not only for us, but for our entire community. So those are a little bit more detail on the next steps, and we've certainly had a strong start to the school year. With, you saw those numbers of the number of students that have engaged is very high, which means they've logged on. So strong numbers with enrollment, strong numbers with, okay, they're enrolled and they're actually engaged with our staff and our teachers, and then strong instruction with the teachers as well. So very proud of our district and our team this first week of school. So with that, we'll take any questions.
Thank you very much, Dr. Brown and Dr. Cavazos. Do we have any questions of trustees? Mr. Hogg?
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Mays, and thank you, Dr. Cavazos and Ms. Brown. It's a lot of information we've talked about every single week, and I know we have lots of one-off conversations with individuals and across as we're going through. Let me ask and thank you for clarifying, as we talked about last week, because I don't think the community's heard. September 3rd is a decision point day for us to look at numbers and see where those go through. Are we tracking? And as we get into some of these hybrids, I've heard alternative options of, how do you send all kindergarten through third grade? Because listen, they have the hardest time online of any of the groups out there. I know we're sending our special ed services. Have we considered some of those options of, when we talk hybrid instead of just days, or have we considered like grades having a progressive rollout or sending them in to face-to-face learning?
So thank you, Mr. Hogg. We have looked at those different models, and from our standpoint, they become very challenging in a couple of big aspects, and then we can get into as much detail, but a couple of big aspects, because if we bring the younger learners first for a period of time, there's still the social distance requirement, there's still the staffing situation, because even the facility situation. So just to kind of keep a simple example, if we bring pre-K and kinder and first and spread them all over the building because of the 10 to a classroom, well, you're going into 5th grade classrooms, 4th grade classrooms, 6th grade classrooms, and they're not really equipped for the younger learners as one, just kind of one facility issue. The other is the staffing. So you have one teacher who is with the 10 or 11, and there's another, they split their class to another classroom. So that's one. The other big kind of challenge with that, and it really applies to even beyond the grade level span, is that we know that this will grow. So in other words, face-to-face instruction will, more people will want to do that as we sustain an opening. And so to be able to serve more kind of quickly, if you will, it would be important, I think, to build, this is again conceptually, and Tracy's working on this with her team, but to build a hybrid schedule so that we can work everyone into a schedule. Now, quite frankly, it's not ideal if you can only come to school twice a week or 3 times a week. That's not ideal. And it's not ideal if you have to do online instruction, right? But the reality is to implement the protocols with fidelity, and so our teachers can manage all that. It's to reduce the numbers and make sure we can serve students as they become more comfortable in wanting to come to school. But we've looked at those options. We've looked at even if there's a low demand for face-to-face initially, we do anticipate that that demand will grow quickly. And so we have to be prepared for that. So that's a long answer, Mr. Hogg, but basically the challenge with just bringing kinder or pre-kinder is a facility issue, but also a staffing issue. And then also when we want to surface and start bringing the other classes, it becomes real challenging, because then you have to put the 20 students somewhere as we bring 3rd and 4th graders.
And Dr. Vassos, what are we doing to formally track what some other districts have done going to face-to-face? We're the 3rd largest district in the Metroplex. What are we doing? Listen, scale's always an item and an issue, but what are we doing to officially track some of these smaller districts that have gone face-to-face?
Dr. Brown, you want to, I can answer generally on that. Dr. Brown, you may have more information, but generally, Mr. Hogg, they for a large portion have done basically a slow start transition, call it what you want. It's a hybrid where they don't all come to school at the same time. The ones that are coming up in terms of face-to-face for whoever wants it are still a little out after Labor Day, that those we'll start seeing some of that. So that's what we're seeing, that there is what I would consider right now moderate success in some of those that have started slow. It's really early because we know that the statistics are, it's a couple of weeks after you engage in groups and things like that you start seeing the true effect. So I think it's a little early. We're certainly keeping track of all that. Dr. Brown, I don't know if you have additional information on that.
Nothing outside of that, Dr. Cavazos.
Okay.
And I think it's got to be a discussion point of topic on the 3rd. We've got to look at that and say, take a look, and it does take time. Listen, this is as we all said, there's 1,000 data points and 1,000 decision points that go into any of these type of decisions. And then let me ask the other question. People, the comment of, oh, we'll just choose, some teachers choose, some teachers some parents choose, and I'm all for, I'm all for choice, but are we tracking? Are we going to resurvey parents and teachers? Because I know when the survey comes up on teachers, it's higher as they show a smaller more PPE, more distancing, those type of things. Are we going to resurvey, especially parents, and see where they stand coming up in these next couple of weeks?
In essence, yes, Mr. Hogg. In essence, yes. I think that will continue to shift and change. I think the big picture with all of this discussion continues to be when we hit those targets set forth by Tarrant County Health. That's, I think, going to be a major point in people's decision, quite frankly, in parents' decision, teachers' decisions, etc. When we have confidence that we're meeting those standards in a strong way across our community, I think then the discussion will quickly flow into, okay, when can we start activating face-to-face? And that's something we want to do. We want those targets to be met. We have an effect on those targets, by the way, because we're a large system. So we actually have an effect and will have an effect when we open. But I think when we hit those targets, and we've said from the onset, when parents made that choice, when they were registering and it was more of a survey, that we're going to continue to ask them, because their feelings from July the 7th to today to eventually face-to-face opportunity will have shifted, would be my guess. I know that's the reality for all of us. So yes, continue to source that. I think really important to have a way to service many students in a manageable number a day, and then sustain that. That's the other thing, is we want to sustain the service to our students. So if a student can come, or a family can come twice a week, because that's the schedule, we want that twice a week to be sustained for weeks and weeks, and be able to keep growing into that. The numbers get better, we serve them more, and we serve at a bigger capacity. That would be the ideal. And so to answer your question, yes. And on the staffing, the same thing. We want to make sure that our staff is comfortable, the teachers are comfortable. They've told us in a lot of different ways, okay, survey, informally, anecdotally, etc., that if we manage the numbers and we're true to the protocols of temperature checks, screening, masks, the lunch schedule, the changing of classes and all that, if we can hold those tight, then they feel very comfortable coming back face to face, and those numbers are met. So all these things work together. But the good news, at least, kind of points of good news, is that we're seeing some progress in those numbers, and I'm very hopeful, and as we continue to sustain that, hopefully in our community, we'll be having discussions about how we start face to face.
No, I appreciate that, and I appreciate, as we had in the last couple of meetings, the transparency of what's the tracking, what are we trying to look at. Listen, data is something to be used, but we can't have paralysis. We've got to look at it and use it as a piece of part of the decision. So I appreciate looking at those numbers. I appreciate, more importantly, we got to creatively think of what we do and how we do this. So that's all the questions I have.
And one more thing, Mr. Hogg, you didn't ask this, but we've had a lot of conversation about this in different topics. Building into this schedule will also be customized exceptions, call it what you want, for families and students and situations. We have to be open as a system, and I completely support that, to have to make exceptions for cases that we don't even anticipate right now. So we build this schedule, and a family has XY situation. We have to be nimble enough to manage the numbers, but adapt enough to serve families and students the best way we can, with exceptions and customization and things like that. Always trying to ensure, and this is the key, ensure that those numbers in that classroom every day are manageable and small, for lack of better words. And if we can do that and have ways to adapt and customize for special situations, that's how we're building this. That's how Dr. Brown is leading this.
That's essential, and I really appreciate that, because there are the special exceptions of small pods that are being run, kids that are learning together with other students to guide those, and how do we make sure they're then going on certain days. And I think we all can attest the hours that our schedulers our principals and our APs are working throughout this district, because those are, listen, scheduling a school of which students are going to be there, especially when you get in the secondary level, that is no small feat on anything. And then you add this other element into there. I've seen the hours they've been doing, so I appreciate it. Appreciate the answers.
Thank you, Mr. Hogg. Any other questions? Yes, Dr. Reich.
Well, first off, Dr. Brown, Dr. Marcello, or Dr. Cavasso, sorry, thank you very much for the information. I echo what Mr. Hogg said as far as all of the amazing work that everybody's doing. I know the virtual start has been challenging and rewarding for all parties concerned. So special shout out to the teachers that are, no matter how many years they've been in, it's like a brand new first year kind of situation. So I just want to put that out there. So at our meeting last week, we discussed sending a letter to the governor to ask for increased flexibility, et cetera. We developed that letter. Thank you very much for sending that off. Have we had any reply or heard anything from the governor or any other school districts signing on with that initiative or anything at all?
So no formal response yet from the governor's office or the commissioner on our request. I also surfaced the same request to our lieutenant governor, as I'm part of a focus group of superintendents that meets virtually with our lieutenant governor to provide feedback. And so I surfaced that need to be able to do hybrid scheduling across the system. And he was open to that consideration. No promises, as you can expect, but certainly open to that consideration. So that's as far as we've gotten thus far with that.
Okay. Yeah. To be continued. We'll hope for good progress there and not too late. So the numbers are looking good, assuming that they continue to trend in that positive direction. You know, the third is our decision point. With the assumption that everything does look good and we are able to bring everybody back in a hybrid type of model, that would be September 14th. Is that correct? Or what would that be?
Yeah, that's a good question, Dr. Reich. So I'm going to kind of go big picture for again, and then come to your specific question. So the numbers are going to drive that. And that's, I keep sounding like a broken record. So I can't tell you a specific date or things like that because there's a lot of assumptions that would have to go into that. So, but if the numbers trend a certain way and sustain for the period of time that is outlined, then that's when we would shift to face-to-face with the strict protocols of hybrid in this case. So there's no clear point in time necessarily. We'll know more next week and then the following week as we come to the board, because we'll have more numbers basically to be able to point to. If it's clear at that point, which I hope it will be, then we can set a point in time to your question. You know, it's all kind of interdependent, right? So the scheduling and the making sure that we have the right staffing and things like that is all connected. So while it sounds like a long time from now, we're here basically on that. And so remembering again, reminding everyone that today we don't have the flexibility to continue hybrid at elementary and junior high beyond the 8 weeks, if you will. That's what we're advocating for, because that is a sustainable way. If the numbers completely improve and drastically and all that, then there's all kinds of different conversation about how we do school, and I look forward to that day.
As do we all. And what is the timeline for families for parental notification of what that plan is? So whatever we decide on September 3rd, is it like the next day? Is it X weeks or a week before that date of what the new plan would be? What are we bound by a certain statute that it has to be a certain number of days or a week, or I'm sure we're going to beat it anyway, but I was just curious what that looked like.
Yeah, so we hope to have a comprehensive discussion with the board about how we can run a hybrid schedule September 3rd. The staff has been working diligently on that. And so to be able to have a comprehensive discussion, including, Dr. Rice, to your question, when those kind of notifications would go out, when it would start, and all that's related to that. Again, with a big underlying assumption that the numbers will be favorable to be able to do that. So certainly a more comprehensive discussion September 3rd. I think one thing to I think consider is that the face-to-face instruction is something that we all want, but it's also something that has to be driven by, as you know, and we've talked many times about this as a group, that has to be driven by those metrics, and that has to be the case. And so if those metrics don't change, or those numbers don't change, then it makes it very difficult to change right now. So again, September 3rd, and is when we'll have a comprehensive discussion about scheduling and when we would implement that and how that would look.
All right, that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Reich. Ms. Walton.
Thank you, President Mays. I usually am a very optimistic person, but I have one issue with, if we're talking September 3rd about, good numbers and on the metrics with the Tarrant County Health Department, and then Monday the 7th is Labor Day, and we have traditionally had some issues a couple of weeks after each holiday that we've had recently, and that I hope we're not, I don't think we are going to lock anything in on the 3rd. We're going to hear, am I correct, Dr. Cavazos? We're just going to hear kind of trends and where we're going, but not announcing any kind of opening or whatever. I'm confused about that.
Yeah, so thank you for the question, Ms. Walton. And procedurally, and the way it's set up by the Texas Education Agency, the board would submit this waiver to allow the flexibility that we were talking about. So I guess that's the best way to describe it. So to allow continued online because the numbers have not improved, or to allow hybrid because the numbers have improved. So this period of flexibility is something that the state is requiring that boards take action on. In other words, that the board request the fact that there is a need for flexibility. The flexibility can be all the way from continued online to hybrid face-to-face, and any variation in between that. And that's what this agency has set up. And so that's what we would be asking the board to consider, is submitting a waiver to allow us to have the flexibility to implement a hybrid schedule when appropriate, to continue online if it's not appropriate to have a face-to-face schedule.
Thank you for that. And I am so impressed with our faculties and members and all of our administration that's been working so hard all summer long to give us so many different options and ideas because I think it's real important. I won't speak for the rest of the board, but I think it's real important that when the numbers tell us it's safe and we go back, that we are doing that with some certainty that we're going to be able to sustain staying open, because I can't think of anything worse than getting open and then, weeks later having to, be shut down again. I think that would be harder on kids and families than being careful and being sure that when we do open, we can sustain it.
Yes, completely agree.
Thank you very much, Ms. Walton. Any other questions from trustees? Yes, Mr. Wilbank.
Thank you, President Mays. And Dr. Brown and Dr. Cavazos and the whole staff, I just want to applaud you guys. I know a number of my colleagues have. I think things have gone swimmingly for the most part, and I would have talked to a number of principals, staff, teachers, parents at all levels, and all of them give you guys an A++. I mean, there's been a few little, an A+, I would say. There's been a few minor hiccups, but they were minor, you know, related to technology, you know, the passwords that you mentioned, Dr. Cavazos. But the teachers I've talked to were amazed that the number of engagement and, you know, they might be missing out of their 4 sections of classes, 1 student that they're having trouble reaching, and the students are engaged, they're working, everyone's performing well, and everyone's been surprised at how well the plan is working in terms of the synchronous versus asynchronous and the schedule, the bell schedules. A lot of work went into that, and I know kudos to Eric Upchurch staff, because I know they've a lot of work to go from the data in Teams and populate it into Canvas and have it be ready on day 1. Everyone's been giving 110%, and it shows. I've even talked to employees at other districts, and they're jealous of us right now. And it goes to the quality of our talent and our staff and the dedication of our teachers. And our students are reaping the rewards of that. Virtual is not ideal. It's no one's ideal, but you guys, I think, are doing it better than anyone out there right now, according to the feedback that I'm getting. So again, thank you for that. I'm sorry, I wanted to be brief, but I do thank you for the one sheet, Tracy and Dr. Brown, in your slide on the technology. That's very needed. I said, you know, the only thing holding me back from giving you an A++ was I fielded a lot of calls from our constituents, parents, usually the dads, who are clueless, like me, who were looking for that one sheet of where to go on our website, either to the district, on what to do to be prepared for Monday. And there's been a lot of communication, but you know, there was just some small misses, but overall, again, A+ effort. That technology one sheet was very much needed. And then the other frustrating part from principals that I'm hearing is they're staying a lot at night fielding questions on tech support issues from parents. And I know we have a trouble ticket system. Some parents have complained that it's not easy to find on the AISD.net site. And so we can look at, you know, making sure if a parent's looking for support on Canvas or anything, we can make that crystal clear where they go to do that. And also, I'd be curious to find metrics, and I don't need them tonight, but if, you know, Madam Secretary, if you could make a note, I would like to request our trouble ticket support metrics on how many tickets we've received and how long it's taken to close those out, and where that volume is now, and how it's trending over the next week and a half, maybe, just to make sure that, you know, seeing the trend, we know we're going to have a big, huge spike this first week, but making sure that we're getting adept at bringing those numbers down over time. So I definitely like to make that request. But again, thank you, and thanks to staff. It's been a great first week, and I can tell you firsthand from my student, I'm blown away. I think he's doing even better now in this environment than he did, you know, a year ago, and certainly better than he did in the spring. He's really thriving and doing well so far. Knock on wood.
Yeah.
Trustee
So,
Wilbanks,
Mr.
may I
Wilbanks.
ask for clarification to make sure we're getting the right data for you? Are you looking at tickets by parents' tickets, technology support parents?
Yes.
That's the data you want. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
And Dr. Brown, do you have that, or you don't have that?
I don't know if it's broken down right now by student. I know we had 700 tickets
Right.
this week in terms of technology requests. As of yesterday, I think Eric mentioned they had a little over 100 requests in one day. So we can certainly get the information in terms of the length of time to close those out and maybe talk about the types of support that's being requested. We can certainly get that information to you.
Yeah, but just the perspective of you know, I think over 30,000 devices that we've handed. There's about 700, and this is, the ticket request could be for other things such as Canvas login and things like that, but just the volume in proportion to the number of students that are engaged, which is well over 50,000. It's a very, you know, while it's big, they're working those tickets and they've worked them during the weekends and stuff. So they make great progress, and the volume is, relatively speaking, low.
Yeah, if I could jump in and add too, I left a very important crew that worked really, really hard over the weekend, and that's the counselors too, to do all the change requests, which is a nightmare in normal circumstances, but doing it given in this virtual environment and going from Teams and having it populate Canvas, I heard over and over again what a monumental task that was. And you guys rose to the challenge. It wasn't smooth, but you know, it was new. So, but again, it wasn't smooth, but it was still an excellent job. So again, kudos to the counseling staff as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilbanks. Any other trustees with any questions and or comments? Mr. Chapa.
Thank you, President Mays. I had a couple questions about the registration numbers and the engagement numbers. And I know that students in any normal year, we have registration running after the first day of school, on the first day of school. And so it seems like we've got over 57,000 or so students registered, but the engagement numbers for this week shows that there's about a 1,900 student gap between number of students registered and number of students who are engaged. I was just wondering if I could get some more insight into what might be causing that gap, and is there is there some trend to that gap, and what are we doing to reach? I know we're doing operation registration, but what are we doing for the students who are registered but not engaged?
That's a good question, Trustee Chapa. One of the reasons why they may not be engaged is it could be a no-show. And so, as I mentioned earlier, we're still going through the no-shows to be able to start pulling those out. So it could be a student who rolled over as a registered student, but has not engaged yet in the learning because they don't plan on returning. So this week we're trying to finalize those no-shows, get those pulled. That's probably the main reason. Otherwise, our teachers are reaching out to those parents, trying to get them involved. And then the home visits will be another way to be able to try to reach those we've not been able to make contact with. But no-shows are probably more significant than the other.
Yeah, that and just to add a little context, the numbers relative to the enrollment is very strong. The number of engagement, the percentage of engagement. It's just we quite frankly didn't see a lot of that in the spring early on. That was very hard to reconcile those. In other words, we know the kids are in our district because it was spring break, right? And yet the engagement, we kept trying, eventually got strong engagement, but that was a challenge. Kind of the flip right now, which is very positive, that engagement right off the bat it seems to be very strong. And so to Dr. Brown's point, in these numbers, and that's why it's very early, it's interesting. In normal years, when we do head counts the first day, they're all over the place in terms of the actual counts and all that. So it's just always been a running joke that we, it's a struggle to get head counts the first day. But the no-shows that we're processing now and that we'll continue to process do have an effect. So one can imagine that somebody registered in July and for whatever life circumstance they moved. Well, they're registered, they're enrolled, but they haven't, been engaging because they may not any longer live in the district, right? But the actual, relative, engagement to enrollment for the first 3 days of school, now 4 days, is very, very high, which is good to see, which means that registration, preparation, engagement, teacher outreach, campus outreach had a big effect in connecting the kids to the learning platforms and to the learning, because that's where we're getting the numbers from, the learning management system.
Okay, thank you. for that. I had a couple other questions, and one of which is, and this is just more of a general question, and y'all have touched on it, some of it tonight, but we get a lot of feedback from constituents, and I know that Dr. Cavazos, you've been getting a lot of the same emails and phone calls that we have, but a common thing that we hear from some constituents is, well, I said I want to be in person, and I'm fine with sending my kid in person every day and for as long as it takes, and I don't really care so much about the metrics. So aside from, and they'll say, well, and we know that there are some teachers who feel the same way. So aside from the metrics from the Tarrant County Health Authority, which we have been clear from the beginning of this situation that we're going to consult the experts on public health when we make our decisions. Beyond that, can y'all go into a little bit of the logistical issues with just trying to say, well, it's not quite as simple as saying, well, we have this number of teachers that would be okay coming right now, and we have this number of parents who are okay with coming right now, so we're just going to let them do that. Go into some of the reasons why that actually isn't as feasible as it might sound on first blush for some of our constituents.
Yeah, and I'll take a stab at it, then I'll let Dr. Brown, if she wants to add to that. So a couple of just quick kind of, examples to that. So we hear also, Mr. Chapa, that, at this school, 40% want to come back or 35% want to come back. Just let them come back, face to face when we hit those numbers, right? Why would you say they have to go into a hybrid schedule if those numbers at that school seem manageable, right? 30%. Couple of big challenges with that. Because and again, we're dealing with this every day, so we think about these things and analyze this, but a couple of challenges with that. Number one, that 40% or 35% at that one particular campus, where intuitively a person would say, well, let's just let them in because that's a manageable number. You keep talking about manageable numbers. What that doesn't take into account just right off the bat is that's not equally distributed among the grade levels. So that 30-40% may represent all the fifth graders want to come back. 3 second graders want to come back. And so because they're not evenly distributed, it begins to quickly challenge the number in the classroom. The fact that we want to maintain a manageable 6 feet apart number in a classroom. So just intuitively we'd say, well, that's the right capacity, let them come back. That's one big challenge. The other big challenge is that that number, we have to build a schedule so that number continues to grow. So 30% maybe at that one school or 40%, but that would then continue to grow. And if you don't have a schedule where that can be managed, then you have that variability, which then we get into staffing issues where teachers are rightfully concerned about having too many students in one classroom. TEA has also said things, again, I hold them, kind of a little more in terms of the things that they say, that it's a big state, and they say, well, if 20% want to come at one campus and 60 want to come at another, well, just use that other campus to move the other kids to go to the other school. And I mean, things that are not practical. And at some point, this is the point I've made to Commissioner and others, at some point with so many twists and turns, we lose sight of what we're actually trying to accomplish. So move the kids here, do this or do that, and continue to twist and turn, you start losing the effect that you're trying to have, which is teaching and learning with quality and effectiveness. So from our standpoint, that's one of the things that we hear in feedback is let that campus come. The other thing we hear, and maybe you're not asking this, but the other thing we hear is, well, it's 60-40. So let the 40% come. Well, it's not evenly distributed. It's 60-40 across the system, but in some schools it's 70 or 80% or 60% or 50%, which is, and again, that's not distributed equally among the grade levels. That has all kinds of variability. So imagine a teacher that under that concept, all my 22 kids want to come back. Well, there you go. There goes the protocol of being able to social distance. So those are some of the things that sound kind of intuitively, easy to accomplish that run into really big challenges very quickly for operations of the school system and the fidelity of the protocols. And that's our commitment, that if we can, because the fidelity of the protocols is not just for us and for our students and our staff, it actually has an effect on the numbers that we're trying to talk about to begin with, because we're a big system. with 8,500 employees, close to 60,000 students, when our opening face-to-face in whatever level will have an effect if we're not mindful of those protocols. So those are some of the examples. I don't know if that's answering what you were asking, Mr. Chapa, but that's some of the things we think about.
No, that's great to hear. And I know that y'all have been considering that, and we've discussed this at prior meetings, but it's something that we continue to hear, and part of it's a function of just how big of a district we are and how big our schools are. But it's not as simple as saying, well, we have we could allow a choice, and therefore, we could just make it work, because it seems like these two things could just fit together real easy, and it's not quite that simple. And I know it's also not as simple because a good number of our students in our district come from two of the biggest hotspots in Tarrant County for COVID, which is in the 76010 and 014 zip codes. And so that's also something that we have to take into consideration. As you mentioned earlier, we're so big when we open, we're going to have some effect on the metrics and the numbers. And I know it's something that y'all take very seriously. And I'm again commend you for saying from the beginning that you would follow the science on this. My last question has to do with the special transfer window slide that Dr. Brown had put up. I was just wondering if I could get a little bit more information on how that special transfer window will work, and in particular also the special programs. It sounds like we're going to take people into those programs. I'm assuming that we have some open spots, and that's not traditionally been treated as a transfer method of allocating students there. So could we get some more details about how applications or transfers will be handled into those campuses as well?
Yeah, and so just big picture, and then Dr. Brown, if you have other details to that, but big picture on the transfer. So just to be very clear, we surfaced that because that's something that we're planning, and we know that we'll have that opportunity at some schools. There are some schools that have already hit their enrollment target, and so there is technically not room, right? And so we would not be able to take many transfers at some schools. But big picture on that is continuing to work our no-shows. That's really important, because the no-shows in essence means there's room if they don't show up, right? If there's no-shows. Remember, we're way over, I think, way over 95, I think 96% already to projected enrollment. Keeping in mind that projected enrollment is what we use to staff. So if we hit enrollment target, that means we have staffed, and that theoretically we've hit that mark. So to the question about transfers. So first is to understand how many openings we have so that we can accommodate transfers. But that's a no-show process that continues this week, next week, and into before we actually open the transfer window. The academies, for example, will have certain criteria and standards. So it's not a straight transfer, and that'll all be made clear as we surface the transfer window opportunity. But this will be some criteria that includes sibling consideration, obviously language consideration if it's a dual language program. Those are the two main considerations that already exist, quite frankly, when there are openings for other reasons at those schools. So they'll have those standards. It's not just I get to transfer because I want to transfer, but I don't meet the sibling eligibility or language eligibility. So we'll have standards on that. Dr. Brown, you want to address any of that?
That's actually it.
Okay, well, those are all the questions I have, and I appreciate y'all staying on top of this and putting in all the extra work that I know goes unseen, and especially to our teachers. My two started this week, and it has been a good experience. I mean, there's been some growing pains like anything else, and my third grader is learning to transition from Seesaw to Canvas, and she asked me today why she couldn't just keep using Seesaw and why she had to learn how to do Canvas. And I'm sure that's a question a lot of people have, but we're rolling with this like everybody else, and this is not an easy thing for, I think, anybody in this district, and it's a hardship for many families to varying degrees, but it's a hardship, I think, for everyone. But this is one of our times where we just got to pull together, and we got to bear down and show some grit and determination and get through it, because we eventually will. And I hope those metrics continue to work in our favor. And I'm really happy to hear that we're already planning to resume, if the numbers would allow, some sort of version of a hybrid or in-person instruction, regardless of what that looks like when those numbers permit us to. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chapa. Any other trustees with questions, comments? Yes, Ms. Fowler.
Thank you, President Mays. I was wondering how, excuse me, how we're tracking attendance. I know it used to always be taken at 10 a.m. That's when we check to see who was there and who wasn't. How is that attendance being done now?
Dr. Brown.
Yes, I can take that question. So at the secondary level, like at junior high, for example, they take attendance every period. Okay. High schools, again, you know, we have the ADA component, the 90%, and then you have for credit. So it's important that we're balancing both of those. So actually attendance is taken every period. Elementary level, it's taken 3 times a day at structured times. So it's not just attendance, did you log in? It is, are you engaged and are you making progress on the learning? So we have very strict attendance requirements in terms of how we're checking progress. We're looking every day at the number of students who maybe did not log in that day. And then we'll start Monday sending out automated text messages to parents letting them know your child did not log in today. You have until 11:59 to log in and make progress on the learning. So we'll kick that into gear next Monday.
Thank you. And I think it's so important that they're showing that they're working. They're not just clicking in, yeah, I'm here, and then clicking out. They need to show that they are participating and that they're there throughout the day. So thank you so much for that information. Thank you, Dr. Brown.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Fowler. Any other questions or comments? Okay, I have one short question, and that is just based on the time of the year that we're moving into with storms, tornado type activities, thing like what happened in Grand Prairie with the explosion the other day. Other reasons, family members having their utilities cut off because they can't make payments. Do we have any kind of a backup plan or anything that might look different than if the kids were actually in the school building for those situations, as far as hotspots at that time not being able to work, no power if they can't charge up the laptops or the Chromebooks that they have? Is there any back-end plans for that?
So I'll add that one of the things that we're exploring is instructional packets. So we are going to have those for pre-K students, but Dr. Wirtz and his team has been looking at how we can get instructional packets in the hand of students who may not be able to have access to tech to the device at that point or to a Wi-Fi connection, but just having some way to still keep them engaged. And so we're looking at resources to be able to provide those to our students who may need those.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that is one. I think the hotspots is certainly one also, Ms. Mays. You know, and I won't belabor this point, okay, but that's one thing that we've shared over and over, is that this is a community effort, and if nothing, you know, this pandemic has helped us understand, I think, is how important it is for city, school, county to work together, emergency management, food, and meals. I mean, these things they haven't been exposed in our system because we deal with it every day with the social needs of students, but I think it's been exposed at a wider level. And so when you mention displacement of housing or home, you know, just being able to pay the rent, being able to have credit to start internet service, as reduced as the internet service is in some cases because of this situation, some families still can't obtain it because it's not attainable because of the fact that they don't have the credit, or they haven't lived long enough in their home and things like that. So that's where we come in, and that's where we step in. But at some point, this is more of a community effort. So even with the CARES funding and things like that, where there is some dollar that can be allocated by the county and the city and others for some of these efforts, we are in very deliberate conversations with them about basically combining some funding so that we can continue the volume that we're doing with specifically technology and connectivity. So those are real issues that our schools face and our students and families face. Again, I commend our technology staff and our principals, because as they get those requests, whether they can't log in or the device or whatever, they are on it to make sure the continuity of learning exists, and that's our primary focus. We deal with those as they come in those situations, and we've already faced some of those situations where families are struggling in different ways. What we want to make sure is that we have the connection with the families. In other words, that we're able to connect with them either on the phone or email, etc., so that we can, as best as possible, access services. That's fundamental. They may not be able to log into, the system and all that, but if we can connect by phone, which is why, again, kudos to technology and all that for that app that allows the number to be, the school number when it's another phone and things like that, because that was a big concern, because people are using their phones and stuff. So those are the direct connections. Aaron Perales works with the nonprofits as well to help in that as well, to connect families with service.
Okay. Well, thank you for that clarification. And I know that we're doing a good job, and we'll continue to do whatever we need to do to make sure that type of communication is out to the public, and for parents to understand that if these special situations, when they occur, even if they're going to be for a short period of time, our whole purpose is the continuity of educating our students. So anything to make sure that there's no gaps in there, really appreciate it. So thank you. Thank you, Dr. Brown. Thank you, Dr. Cavazos. Appreciate you very much for that report. So next on our agenda are items to be withdrawn from the consent agenda. Are there any items to be withdrawn from the consent agenda by any trustee? Okay, I see none. So tonight we will be considering the items listed on the agenda under consent items. Mrs. Moss, please share bids.
Thank you, President Mays, board members, Dr. Cavazos. Tonight we have consent item A, which consists of 4 bids, and consent item B, which consists of 6 bids, or 6 items that are greater than $50,000. Our purchasing department, again, has vetted out these bids, and we're presenting those to you for your consideration tonight.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Moss. Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
President Mays, I'll make the motion.
Okay, do I have a second? Second by Dr. Reich. So a motion by Mrs. Fowler, a second by Dr. Reich. Any discussion? Seeing none, we will vote. Ms. Walton?
Holly Walton, I vote yes.
Mrs. Fowler?
Melody Fowler, I vote yes.
Mr. Wilbanks?
David Wilbanks, I vote yes.
Mr. Chapa?
Justin Chapa, I vote yes.
Dr. Reich?
Aaron Reich, I vote yes.
Mr. Hogg?
Bowie Hogg, I vote yes.
Keisha Mays, I vote yes. The consent agenda motion passes in the affirmative. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mrs. Moss. Next on our agenda is open forum for non-agenda items. Mrs. Benjamin, do we have anyone registered to address the board regarding non-agenda items?
No, ma'am, we have no registered speakers for this portion of the agenda.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Benjamin. Next on the agenda is our superintendent's report. Dr. Cavazos.
Thank you, President Mays. And I just want to thank, again, the teachers in particular for the great start to this school year. The first day of school, I was able to zoom into about 9 different classrooms, probably to the stress of the teachers, but able to zoom in from pre-K all the way to high school. And I'll tell you that, it was building relationships the first day, it was engaging and things like that with the families and the students. But pre-K was learning how to mute and unmute. And I'll tell you, they did better than many adults in Zooms that I'm in. And so they were learning that fast. And And the creativity of our teachers is just, I just can't say enough. I mean, there was one where there were activities where students had a little timer to go find something that the letter starts with. And the teacher would put up a letter and the students would run in their house and try to find something that represents a letter. I was concerned they weren't going to come back because they would just disappear, but then they'd all come back with the timer, run back into their space, and then show that they have an apple or other things, that relate to the letter that was on the screen. All the way to high school with some of our early college high school students who had very insightful questions. Also with a class that will eventually be at our new Visual and Performing Arts Center, that they'll be taking class there. So that class was meeting virtually. And they were just so impressed with the design and what's coming and when they can go into that facility to use those resources. And so just a very strong start. And again, the teachers, truly amazing, and our curriculum staff that prepared, and the principals that worked very diligently. Just a little context, there's principals across our districts that are leading task forces as well in the summer. And they've done exceptional work leading that and providing the insight from the school, the teachers who've been on task forces. So just very proud of our AISD team, the way we've come together and be able to do these things. And I certainly look forward to the time that we can start face-to-face instruction as well. So that's it. Just very proud.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cavazos. School board trustees, any reports? Yes, Mr. Wilbanks.
Thank you, President Mays. We talked about the first day of school, but another big event that we held over the weekend was our back to school kickoff at AT&T Stadium. And virus or no virus, it was a huge success from what I could tell, serving about the same number of people, Dr. Cavazos. So
yes,
Dr. Cavazos was out there. We had a few Cowboy cheerleaders out there, and I worked from 8:30 from about 8 to 11, checking people in, and the cars just weren't stopping. Amazing group. Aaron Perales and his team, it seemed like a logistical nightmare, but they handled it, and it looked like they'd been doing it that way forever. They turned on a dime and they met the challenge. And so again, I want to thank the staff for putting that together and providing valuable backpacks and supplies to some of our kiddos who need it most. So again, thanks to the staff for that.
Thank you, Mr. Wilbanks. And definitely thank the sponsors and the supporters and the nonprofit groups that are providing services for our students, whether it's dental, eye, whatever. Absolutely thank the community for being fully involved. Thank you for that report, Mr. Wilbanks. Any other trustees with reports? Okay, I didn't say this, but I do want to say when Dr. Brown was going through her presentation, I mean, Operation Graduation, what we used to kind of know of, or we had the opportunity to go out and go with the staff to the schools and tell the kids, hey, come back, how many credits you have, just that opportunity to be involved. And I really miss that. So there's just a lot of things that we miss, and that definitely is one thing that I do miss, to see the parents' face or the students' face when they say, oh, that's all I have left to do. But even just going out and checking on the students for enrollment or re-enrollment, I think that's awesome. So just another one of the things that I miss for the moment. I know that it will come back and be the same. Okay, so with that being said, Ms. Secretary, do we have any items to consider?
Yes, ma'am. We have had a request that the board would like a report on the technology help tickets that parents have submitted, metrics of how many were there, how long did it take to close out the ticket, and kind of how the trend is going over the next few weeks until our next board meeting. And also the type of support requested was another one of the metrics.
Very good. Thank you.
Keisha, I think you're on mute.
Yeah,
Okay.
Mays, you're on mute.
Twice. Thank you. It is 8:07. And at this time, this meeting is adjourned. Everyone have a good evening.